Hello, everyone. My name is Amani Reed. I am the Policy Engagement Manager for Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light. So thankful to be here with you all today. My cat is being a cat, but this is the Advocacy, Policy, and Organizing session for Eastern PA that for Philadelphia and Eastern PA as a whole. There are many important climate issues facing the world today. News reports and studies, emails, and social media feeds are replete with information regarding the ever-changing landscape of legislation and policy on the state and federal levels. It is difficult to keep up with the flow of information and frustrating when we feel we have missed an opportunity to have an impact. Catastrophe fatigue is also a very real factor as we engage systems and the well-funded lobbyists and players involved at all layers. The panel of experts in front of us in the Advocacy, Policy, and Organizing at Eastern PA panel will attempt to narrow the field of focus so that we can look to the work ahead with confidence and direction. Our speakers will focus on the most pressing issues in climate justice, how the organization is addressing these issues, and how we can be involved today, next year, and beyond to organize in support of climate justice. So thank you all so much for being here. And I'm gonna introduce the speakers now, and then we're gonna get right into it, and we're gonna start with Ezra. We have Ezra Thrush here. Okay. We have Ezra Thrush from Penn Future. Based in Penn Future's Harrisburg office, Ezra Thrush leads and develops the organization's policy initiatives and is its liaison with elected officials in both Harrisburg and Washington, D.C. Ezra manages all legislative and executive branch relationships, as well as public policy decisions and processes, serving as Penn Future's chief lobbyist and external voice on policy positions, strategy, and relationships, and representing Penn Future on the steering committee of the Choose Clean Water Coalition. Thank you so much, Ezra, for joining us. And next, I'm going to introduce Courtney Foley from Climate Action Campaign. Courtney is a senior director at the Climate Action Campaign, or CAC. Courtney worked at American Bridge as their tracking director in 2018 and led a team of over 40 field researchers. Previously, Courtney was a deputy field director at the National AFL-CIO, designing and executing campaigns for organized labor. Additionally, Courtney served as the deputy national political director for Sierra Club. She has worked on many candidate campaigns, independent expenditures, and ballot initiatives, including overturning Senate Bill 5 in Ohio in 2011. She graduated from George Washington University and is laboring on her MBA part-time. And originally from Mississippi, Courtney volunteers her time training women running for office in southern states. Thank you so much, Courtney, for joining us. Next, Katie Blume from the League of Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania. Katie Blume is the political director for Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania. She has spent over 20 years as an organizer and advocate for many social justice issues, including electoral politics, having worked on local, county, and state legislative races. Prior to joining Conservation Voters of PA, Katie served as the deputy political and organizing director for the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, and she currently serves on her community's borough council. As the political director, Katie brings her diverse background in the nonprofit, private, and political sectors to work with elected officials and candidates to highlight the possibilities for progress in combating the climate crisis here in PA. Thank you so much, Katie, for joining us. And next, Katie Blumberg from the Jewish Earth Alliance and Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light, and our newest board member. Phyllis Blumberg has been committed for more than half a century to a healthy environment, having participated in the first Earth Day in 1970, working to repair the ozone layer and reduce acid rain. She is even more dedicated to and passionate about averting the effects of the current climate disruption, since the consequences are even more dire, as we know. 2 years ago, Phyllis retired as a university professor and administrator to be able to devote more time to climate advocacy and educating others about the effects of climate change. For 2 years, she has been working, or writing, I should say, to and meeting with local, state, and federal elected officials, as we heard earlier, making phone calls to constituents in other districts, asking them to take similar actions. And we thank you so much, Phyllis, for joining us. And with that in mind, I want to just jump right into our questions for our speakers today. And I'm going to start with Ezra Thrush from Penn Future. And for this part, I would say if everyone can just answer all the questions or in any way they would like, and then we'll just move on to the next speaker, and then at the end we'll do Q&A. So the questions once again. The most pressing issues in climate justice, how your organization or as an individual, how you're addressing these issues, and how we can be involved today, next year, and beyond in order to support climate justice. Ezra, would you like to kick things off?
Yeah, thank you, Amani, and thank you folks here, IPL conference, for having me. I'm really honored to be a part of such an esteemed panel, just incredible colleagues here. So I'm happy to be here today, this Sunday afternoon. I'll just make a quick disclaimer. I'm with family as well, so like Amani and her cat, we may have some family noise in the background, but I will keep things as tight as possible. But very exciting to be here with you all, talking about climate justice in Pennsylvania, specifically advocacy and policy work in Pennsylvania. Penn Future is a statewide advocacy organization. We are the nonprofit and affiliate of the National Wildlife Federation. We're based in Harrisburg. My office is just across the street from the state capitol building, and I get the good pleasure of working in the state capitol building every day that legislators are in Harrisburg to make sure that we're holding them accountable, that make sure that, as is too often the theme today, to stop bad legislation from moving forward that would brunt the impact of our good work and give away more ways to create increased climate concern, and also to move forward some good policy. So I work primarily at the state level, though we also do a good bit of advocacy with our federal delegation from Pennsylvania, specifically Senator Casey and the rest of the Pennsylvania delegation. But I wanted to focus specifically on the state work. Penn Future does so much state work closely with our partners in the climate space, but also clean energy and clean water. Specifically in the climate space, we're doing a lot to move forward a new regulation to limit carbon. I know that's going to be spoken about by some other panelists, so I'll save some space for that. But I wanted to just lift up a couple things we're trying to move forward. We're trying to get increased policy support and allow for more participation for Pennsylvanians to purchase solar energy. Right now, we have some legal and technical barriers on solar energy participation. So we're trying to work on legislation in that realm. We're trying to move legislation that would also increase the amount of charging stations for electric vehicles across the state. Unfortunately, it's hit some roadblocks, to borrow a bad pun, and we're hopeful that we can move that legislation this term or next term. And there's also legislation we're trying to move to increase our solar targets and renewable energy policy through the alternative energy portfolio standards, or in many other states, they call it the renewable portfolio standards. So that's most of our climate work. I'm brief on that end, just because I wanted to highlight some other issues. We're doing some work that I think are really dovetailed together with climate and climate impacts in Pennsylvania. As you're aware, climate impacts Pennsylvania primarily through increased precipitation, higher temperatures, more extreme weather. What we've seen in the last several years in Pennsylvania is that our streams, creeks, and rivers throughout the Commonwealth are going to be hit pretty hard. And we had really extreme weather in 2018. We had the flooding Susquehanna River. We had Tropical Storm Isaias hit the southeast part of the state pretty hard a few years ago. And then just this September, Pennsylvania really bared the brunt of Hurricane Ida when it came through the Commonwealth. And what we're trying to work on is pushing forward legislation at the nexus of climate and water. We work a lot with groups on watershed protection and restoration, planting more tree buffers. And we think the climate impacts we can work on is planting more tree buffers. What that does is, and it retains our forests and reforests Pennsylvania, creates clean water, but it also, the more trees that we plant, the better it is for how much heat we put off. And it's better for the quality of the water, the temperature of the water. Our communities, especially Philadelphia and urban and suburban areas of Pennsylvania, are positively benefited with more trees. And so we do a lot of work in that space. And I wanted to just use that as a bridge to talk about a couple big pieces of legislation that we're trying to move in earnest this legislative term. Two bills specifically are Growing Greener 3 and the Clean Streams Fund. And so these two different bills are conservation funding bills. For far too long, people in Harrisburg have refused to put forward any kind of investments in conservation. We have blown past our timelines and goals in meeting cleanups for the Chesapeake Bay watershed. For far too long, we've thought it was acceptable for polluted lead pipes in the city of Pittsburgh, other regions of the state, lead service lines and pipes that are as old as like wooden pipes in the city of Philadelphia. We need to invest more in our water infrastructure, and we feel Penn Future is very closely aligned with climate work and climate justice. And the folks who are bearing the disparate burden of climate impact are folks who are really seeing a lot of water pollution. So what we need to do first is to move a bill called Growing Greener 3. Some of you may be familiar with a program called Growing Greener. It sets up state funding that gets money out to municipalities, to non-governmental organizations, and other folks who are doing on the ground work for stream restoration, trail maintenance, taking care of parks, taking care of open spaces. And this started in 2000 with Governor Ridge and the General Assembly, and it was a big amount of money. It was like $300 million, the first Growing Greener. The second Growing Greener was passed in 2007 with Governor Rendell in the General Assembly, but unfortunately, it was done through a bond issue and an increase of the tipping fee on any kind of garbage that Pennsylvania assumes from other states. Unfortunately, that money has all but run dry. And for the last several years, we've been pushing to increase funding for Growing Greener. Money that can go out to help out with tree buffer plantings, money that can go out to help out with stormwater retrofitting and those kinds of issues. And so we're seeking some new money for this. We've been pushing for Growing Greener 3 for quite some time. It seems that there's an opportunity this year, especially with the new Congress, with the new president. We were sent billions of dollars to Harrisburg earlier this year through the American Rescue Plan Act. There's still billions of dollars that have been left unspent in Harrisburg. And so our work is to make it so that the General Assembly passes legislation that spends some of these unspent American Rescue Plan dollars on Growing Greener 3. At the end of the day, we need to find a sustainable funding mechanism sometime, whether that's a new fee or tax or making polluters pay or maybe a tax on bottled water or some kind of sustainable funding mechanism. That remains to be elusive today with a majority in the General Assembly who are not pro-environment. But that's something we need to do eventually. But at this point in time, we're working with a bill, it's Senate Bill 525, to take about $500 million from the existing unspent American Rescue Plan dollars and to spend that $500 million on tree buffer planting, some stream restoration work, and all the other activities that are part of the Growing Greener program. The Growing Greener program is really supported in a bipartisan fashion. It's very popular. Legislators have Growing Greener projects that have been funded by state money all over the state. Every single legislative district has money from Growing Greener Fund and the Environmental Stewardship Fund. So we're working on this bill, Senate Bill 525, with the Growing Greener 3, and so far it's made its way through the Senate Environmental Resources Committee in Harrisburg, and just last week it got called up for second consideration on the floor of the Senate. A fancy way of saying it just hit another checkbox on the way to getting final passage in the Senate, and it got referred to the Senate Appropriations Committee. The Senate Appropriations Committee are the senators that have the final say on how the money gets spent before it gets to the floor for a final floor vote, which is pretty encouraging. Good legislation in Harrisburg doesn't happen too often, doesn't move too quickly. So we are feeling in a good spot right now, but we need to continue to keep up the noise in our advocacy, and constituents all across the Commonwealth need to make sure we get this across the finish line. We are hopeful that this bill can pass the Senate this fall before the winter break, and then we can hit it hard and move it as quick as we can in the House on the other side of the new year. So that's the first bill, Growing Greener 3. The second bill I wanted to mention while I have my time is in a similar vein. It's another conservation funding bill, but it's called the Clean Streams Fund. The Clean Streams Fund, it's also SB 832 or Senate Bill 832. This bill is also supported in a bipartisan fashion, though it's a prime sponsor is a Republican. But the Clean Streams Fund is seeking to take $250 million from the American Rescue Plan unspent money and to use $250 million to create this brand new Clean Streams Fund. As a part of the brand new Clean Streams Fund, there's going to be a brand new program created that's housed at the Department of Agriculture's State Conservation Commission, and it's going to be called the Agriculture Conservation Assistance Program. Now, again, this might sound like it's a bit far afield from climate justice, but I'll say it really is woven together, because climate impact in Pennsylvania means not only flooding and more water pollution, specifically from agriculture runoff, but we're going to see increased temperatures that are going to be hard for folks in the agriculture sector in Pennsylvania too. This Agriculture Conservation Assistance Program is going to help get money out the door to conservation districts at the local level and farmers and other NGOs who work with farmers to help get them money to set up more stream bank buffers and planting trees along streams and creeks that are next to agriculture lands. It's going to get the money to help out with stream bank fencing to keep livestock out of the streams. That'll prevent more erosion and sedimentation and ag runoff getting into our waterways. A lot of Pennsylvanians rely on waterways for drinking water, specifically the Susquehanna watershed, the Delaware. And then this money also would help do modernization of barnyards, new manure lagoons if they need this. But it goes a long way to help folks out to get more buffers planted in the farm and agriculture space. So that's about 50% of the money from the $250 million from the American Rescue Plan. This new Clean Streams Fund is also going to create another fund that'll give money out to acid mine drainage cleanup and rehabilitating our abandoned mine lands and doing reclamation work, helping our water quality that's been impacted by coal legacy pollution. We have a significant amount of coal legacy pollution in the northeastern part of the state and the southwestern part of the state. And that's very expensive. And so this fund is going to give 7% of the monies to acid mine drainage cleanup. I was appalled. First time I traveled all around the state, I went up to northeastern PA and I saw orange water, and I just couldn't believe my eyes. And so this will get money out the door to folks who are impacted by coal legacy pollution. And this might be even more interesting for folks who live in urban or suburban Pennsylvania. There's going to be 10% of that money go to a new municipal stormwater assistance fund. A lot of the municipalities across Pennsylvania, I think it's about 300 municipalities in PA, have to apply for something called an MS4 permit. Philadelphia is one of them, and then almost all of the municipalities in the counties outside of Philadelphia have to apply for this MS4 permit. And basically, it's a way to make sure and ensure compliance with the Clean Water Act. So this means there are new stormwater requirements that municipalities have to meet. In order to do that, though, there has to be a lot of work done to retrofit streets, to create bioswales, to green parking lots, to set up new storm sewer system separated systems. We have to sometimes change our surfaces from concrete and gray infrastructure away from that to things more like permeable surfaces. So oftentimes municipalities find it hard to scrap together some money to make those projects happen. So what this new, 10% of this money for the new Municipality Stormwater Assistance Fund, what it could do is help out these cash-strapped municipalities across the Commonwealth to implement these new stormwater projects and to make sure our water quality is better in Pennsylvania. And then this Clean Streams Fund also helped us out with the Keystone Trees Partnership. And the Keystone Trees Partnership helps us reforest Pennsylvania. We have a goal across the conservation community to plant 10 million more trees in Pennsylvania over the next 10 years. And so some of this money would go towards that program as well. So I just wanted to start wrapping up here, but Penn Future is leading the work through climate justice, but I wanted to focus on specifically those conservation funding bills that are moving right now. And before I finish for sure, I just wanted to mention the status of that bill. It's also moving the similar pace and a similar track as the Growing Greener 3 bill. It also moved out of the Senate Environmental Committee a couple weeks ago, and last week it also moved through second consideration in the Senate. So we're expecting final votes in the Senate for the Clean Streams Fund before holiday break, and we'll also continue to push it forward in this Pennsylvania House on the other side of the new year. So that's all I have now. I'm happy to take questions in a bit after the other speakers on the panel. Very excited to be here. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ezra, for those updates on the bill, as well as what Penn Future is doing and how we can get involved. And next, I want to turn it over to Courtney Foley from Climate Action Campaign to answer these questions. Courtney, I'll take it over to you.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see that okay? Awesome.
Yes.
Great. Well, thanks, Amani, and thanks to everyone for having me today. It's great to be a part of your conference. Really appreciate it. So Courtney Foley, Climate Action Campaign, want to jump right in. So our main focus this year is the Build Back Better Act, HR 5376. As you can see, so important to make sure that we deliver for Pennsylvania. We have this existential threat of climate change, and really kind of zoning in on Pennsylvania. We've seen so many extreme weather events that have cost billions of dollars in the state. And so looking at the framework that was released, you can see that the Build Back Better Act is going to be the single largest investment in clean energy economy across buildings, transportation. And so what we're really trying to do is take our national work and work locally in Pennsylvania and a number of other target states. Penn Future and Penn Environment are actually the two groups that make up the CAC state table, which is really fantastic. So just wanted to jump right into some of that work we're doing together. So all of the great work that's been happening on the ground in Pennsylvania, all the mobilization that's taken place has been noticed by leadership. As you can see, we did an event with Speaker Pelosi, and even she said, let us applaud all the groups for their outside mobilization, recognizing that like the inside negotiating isn't enough. It's the mobilization for the members of Congress in their district, in their state. They have to see that to know that constituency, it's really important. So again, just like all of the work that we do wouldn't be possible if you don't have the local groups mobilizing and making sure that folks like Speaker Pelosi see that at the local level, we're going to be the one to get it across the finish line. So I just wanted to demonstrate a lot of local visibility has been taking place in Pennsylvania. And so we've also tried to recreate this in DC as well, so that members of Congress really feel the surround sound. So we have the local visibility in different congressional districts, but then same thing is happening in DC. So if I'm a member of Congress, no matter where I go, I'm feeling this surround sound, this pressure on why Build Back Better is so important for my community. I wanted to highlight a storyteller series that we've been doing. So we actually reached out and recruited different storytellers from local Pennsylvania areas, highlighting clean energy stories, climate activism stories. And as you can see here on the right, there's Bobby Hughes kind of showing his own local perspective on why it's important. And with each of these storyteller videos, there's a call to action at the end. And you actually see that on the right. And that kind of connects to our toll-free number to the House, so that if you're a local constituent and you see these storyteller videos, you can call your member of Congress and let them know how important it is to really move forward, Build Back Better. And we've actually released these storyteller videos all across the country, but I just wanted to make sure to highlight the Pennsylvania ones, and I'll actually include the link to the entire YouTube series so you can take a look. And these are digital ads that are running organically, and then there's also some paid ads that are running as well. And a number of organizations are running these ads in their name too, so their own communities can see the impact at the local level and why it's so important to pass Build Back Better. And then wanted to just mention how we're approaching advocacy at the local level. So we have 4 core strategies. We really want to build a powerful narrative that supports implementation, continued climate action, maintain and engage grassroots climate movement, fuel ambitious policy and action by the Biden administration, and drive coordination and alignment across coalition partners and allies. We work with a number of groups, but we're always looking to expand that reach, and just know it's really important to have that coordination across different communities. So what are we doing, right? What kind of advocacy tactics are we taking? So I just wanted to kind of look under the hood a little bit, go into some of the specifics that we've been working with folks at a local level and how that kind of connects back to the national. So we talked a little bit about the local visibility events that we're doing, not only in district, but also in DC. Then we also launched a national petition that has almost 500,000 signatures. And so at the local level, we distributed those signatures that were in each state so that they could deliver them to their individual members of Congress. So Representative Wild, Representative Cartwright could see, oh, there's 20,000 signatures in my district. This is really important. So having local people deliver those petitions to the members of Congress office. Grassroots. So making sure that we're having grassroots touches that happen not only through phone calls, but also through delivering those petitions. Grass top touches. So a number of folks leading organizations are setting up lobby visits with targeted members of Congress and letting them know why Build Back Better is important to them. And then also making sure that we have really focused constituency groups that we know are important to those members of Congress, also reaching out to them too. So in Pennsylvania, I know some of the constituency groups we've been focused on are veterans, farmers, and college students based in certain districts. And then earned media. Everyone knows stand-up press event, always good for press coverage. So try to make sure that we're doing a lot of those. And then also really encouraging folks to do op-eds and then editorial board meetings, because the more we're able to get in earned media, the more the member of Congress is seeing that message, but also the general public, right? Because we know once Build Back Better passes, we then have to bring this bill back to the country, to the individual districts, and make sure that it's sold and that people are supportive of everything that's in Build Back Better. And then on the digital side, making sure that there's Twitter impressions, ad impressions, wanting to make sure there's a good digital presence. And then we also have a radio tour that's going in strategic locations and radio ads that are partnered with that, really aiming at messengers that can tell that story in individual districts, knowing it's really important to get that out throughout the entire country. So this is just a quick glimpse at some of the advocacy tactics we've been using to try to make sure the bill continues to move forward and there's like forward-facing momentum. And then I wanted to just also highlight some of the representatives that we've seen from our Pennsylvania members of Congress. So what's the purpose, right? So if we apply pressure to members of Congress and applaud those who make public and private statements, then those members are creating an echo chamber so that other members will feel, oh, I need to also publicly release my statement on Build Back Better. Well, if Representative Lamb is comfortable with it, shouldn't I be comfortable with it too? And so as you can see here, these are two recent tweets from both Representative Wild and Representative Lamb supporting the Build Back Better Act. And then Representative Wild actually emailed out to her constituency email this also great message about Build Back Better Act. So again, by having members of Congress release private and public statements, their fellow members of Congress will see those statements and more people will announce. And actually last week we saw a number of members of Congress kind of start this rolling drumbeat as other members lifted those up too. So that's something that we're continually trying to do, which is why all those previous advocacy tactics are so important, because members of Congress continue to feel that surround sound no matter where they go. And then plugging into local advocacy. So whenever we're approaching that, always wanting to make sure to use message guidance and tailor it to the local issue, knowing that also we need to listen, hear what the local advocates are saying is important and tie that back to the national campaign. And then momentum. I mean, as everyone knows, this fight has gone on a lot longer than we all anticipated. So making sure that there's energy and different activities and being creative. There were some of our colleagues in Wisconsin that put together a Build Back Butter statue because that was a creative way to get people involved. And then some states, they've been having big art displays. I know the Alaska table had an ice sculpture that they melted in DC, right? So it's like all the different states are just trying to find creative ways to continue the momentum, because again, September 27th, we originally thought the vote was coming, came and went, and now we just, hopeful that the vote is next week. So how can we plug in? How can we work together? So this is sort of our plan post the vote. That's hopefully happening next week. We'll see what happens. We're hearing from Clyburn it might be Wednesday, but who knows? So welcome back and thank you events with homemade signs. So again, hopefully they do vote and it can be a thank you event, but if not, it can at least be a welcome back event. We're continuing to do calls into members of Congress. We have 2 toll-free hotlines set up that people can use and do action alerts and just call themselves, and it directly connects you to your member of Congress. It's really great. Vocal and visible activity by grassroots and grass tops and frontline voices continue to feel that public support. So making sure to continue those local actions too. And then lobbying local elected officials. Anyone can stop by a members of Congress office and then asking them to make public statements. And even if you can't reach out to your member of Congress, you could reach out to your local elected person and ask them to call the member of Congress. Again, just creating that echo chamber. And then writing a letter to the editor or an op-ed. Again, that earned media is going to continue to be important. And we definitely have a lot of like template information we've been sharing out that people can continue to use. And then sharing social media. So these are just some examples of the recent social media we've shared out to our CAC table, trying to encourage them to lift up recent articles that have come out, and then just some great content that we had from Climate Friday. But I will stop sharing my screen. I think I've taken up my time and really appreciate folks' time today.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for the presentation, as well as the what you're doing advocacy-wise with Climate Action Campaign. For anyone that has any questions for Courtney or for Ezra or the upcoming speakers, please feel free to drop that in the chat as we are trying to make sure we stay within the time. And next, I'm going to give it to Katie Blume from Conservation Voters to speak to us now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Courtney, thanks for lifting up climate power from your friendly Climate Power Pennsylvania Advisory Board member. Really appreciate that. All of our organizations are doing so much on this federal level, but just kind of going back to where Ezra started, and I'll end with a little bit of the connectivity between what we are all talking about, all of our organizations. One of the big things that is happening after 2 years is we are this close to finalizing Pennsylvania's RGGI rule, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. We are so close. We expect some negative movement just from the legislature, what they've been doing all along this coming week. We're almost at the point for the Office of the Attorney General, his environmental division, to sign off on this rule and join RGGI. I'm not sure if we're going to make it for first quarter auctions, but maybe second quarter. For those of you who do not know, RGGI is basically a cap and invest program where allowances are sold at auctions. Energy producers choose between paying the allowances or reducing their emissions. And it's basically like an incentive program to start transitioning into green energy. Over the last 10 years, electricity prices in RGGI states have actually dropped by 5.7% when they went up 8.6% in non-RGGI states. And that also is RGGI proceeds from the auctions going back to these states. A 2018 study found that RGGI brought 14,500 new jobs between 2015 and 2017, as states used the proceeds raised from those carbon auctions to support the growth in the clean energy sector. We are seeing some of this naturally already as the country as a whole and the world is, of course, transitioning to clean energy overall because it is becoming cheaper and cheaper to produce wind and solar, some renewed investments in hydropower, et cetera. I do want to drop here in terms of what we are doing. We do a lot at Conservation Voters of PA. We do a lot of accountability work aside from electing folks, but we also have a scorecard. And people are welcome to look at their local state and state senators and state representatives to see what their score is in the last legislative session, 2019 to 2020. We'll have a new scorecard coming out in about 8 to 10 months as we accumulate votes coming up. But the other piece of RGGI and big things and how we can address justice in all of this is also the RGGI Investments Act. And I dropped our action page there. I dropped in the one for Penn Future earlier. Asking your state legislators to support the RGGI Investment Act. It is what we have. The legislature in Pennsylvania is a do-nothing legislature when it comes to climate, or even when it comes to appropriating funds. As Ezra mentioned earlier, we have billions of ARP money still sitting there. What's going to happen? Are they just going to let proceeds sit in some rainy day fund and not spend it into communities? There's a lot of concern in Pennsylvania about transition and job transition for folks in the fossil fuel industry. The RGGI Investment Act will spend a substantial chunk of RGGI proceeds on worker transition, workforce training and development, et cetera. But what it also does is invest in environmental justice communities or frontline communities. We know full well that carbon pollution and pollution in general affects communities of color first and foremost. And this will help to clean up sites, clean up facilities, et cetera, in these communities where you're already seeing outrageous asthma rates and people then paying more for medical bills. This is not okay, and it's a massive systemic problem. The other aspects of this bill that really help push some of those justice initiatives are the part of the proceeds will have to go to the Clean Air Fund, and that will be administered by DEP. And what DEP can do with that money is invest in energy efficiency programs, weatherization programs. So this not only helps out low income persons in this state, but it also works as job training and workforce development as well, also increasing some of those industries. The RGGI Investment Act, I will not say it is the most perfect act, but it is the best vehicle that we have at this time with a majority anti-environment legislature. The Senate bill number on that is SB 15, and it was introduced by State Senator Carolyn Comita out of Chester County. The other thing, I think I only have like maybe 2 minutes left, is that the other thing we're looking specifically for those of you in Philadelphia and the collar counties that we're looking forward to, and we're kind of waiting for the Build Back Better Act to be passed, seeing how the infrastructure bill will be appropriated and what Treasury is going to do with all that, is transit. In June of 2022, Act 89 in Pennsylvania sunsets. That is the giant funding bill that also gives money to public transit. We will be working towards extending Act 89 until a solution can be found, because we have so much need for investment here in Pennsylvania. A state appropriations bill is not going to be enough. We still need that federal bucket too. And these are all of things that are interconnected. So I'm really glad that Courtney kind of was slid in between Ezra and I, because it's going to take work from both the federal and the state governments to execute this, and then working on our local electeds, people like me in small towns, to apply for grants or loans to accomplish those things locally in community. There you go. I think that's it. I think I did that fast enough, Monty.
No, thank you so very much. We have a lot of comments and questions in the chat. Really appreciate those updates. And I want to just now give it off to our last speaker, Phyllis. Sorry, I don't want to do too much talking, but I really appreciate everyone's presentation so far. Super informative, and I'm seeing everything that's in the chat as well. So thank you so much. I'm saving the chat as well, everyone, and anything we don't get to ask, please just let me know, and I'm be sure to get your questions answered. I'm going to turn it over to Phyllis now. We have about 15 minutes, so we're going to have her presentation and then leave some time for Q&A. Phyllis, whenever you're ready. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm ready. Thanks. So I don't have an organization that has specific policies or acts that we're recommending. I look to the former speakers, and in fact, they've been my former speakers in my in what I've been doing. And I just want to put in a plug for what we're doing this Wednesday. Every month we have a meeting, we talk about what's happening. So this Wednesday, Amani and I are hosting another session, and it's the Combined Jewish Earth Alliance and Pennsylvania IPL, and it's really, where are we? There's been so much talk about what's happening. So where are we nationally as relation to the internationally because of the recent climate talks? Where are we nationally? I don't know whether Wednesday we'll have the vote. As of today, it looks like it's not going to be the vote on Wednesday, maybe Friday. But where are we close? Is it going to pass through the Senate? And then where are we in Pennsylvania? So our speakers, we have Jonathan Leacock-Nisley from the national and international updates. He's going to be talking, he's from the the Interface Power and Light. We have Flora Cardoni from the Penn Environment, and a spiritual offering will be given by Marcy Wilf, who gives a message of gratitude on a regular basis. And basically the whole program is going to be based on gratitude, but you're welcome to come email Amani and she'll send you an invitation for it. Anybody's welcome. I see this very much of gratitude, but what I really want to do is talk about the faith perspective. And I think that's why I was put on this panel. I was raised as a Jew, and as a Jew, as a minority person in society, I was always taught, you know, don't wear your religion on your sleeve and don't talk about it publicly. And I've come to learn that that was not the right message that I heard. And actually, if you wear your religion or your faith on your sleeve when you're talking to policymakers and decision makers, it has a great deal of impact. I have heard from several state legislators and national legislators that they hear from climate change deniers, they hear from evangelicals who say, you know, this is the end of the earth and we're so happy, don't do anything about it. They hear from lots of people, but what they don't hear from people of faith that say climate is really important. So it's really important for people of faith who do believe in, oh, I didn't realize my video was off the whole time. Sorry. They don't hear from us, and we need to say it, and then we need to quote our scriptures. We need to talk about it as a moral perspective. We need to talk about it ethically and use our grounding in our faith as one of the reasons why we want to be doing this. And to me, that's a very convincing argument. Most of our legislators at the national level and at the state level are good religious people. And when you talk to them, you're reaching a common bond. So it's, you know, as a Jew, I can say this to a Christian. As a Christian, you can say this to another Christian. As a Muslim, you can say this to a Jew, because that's where we have common ground. So it's really important to speak from your religious tradition and to talk about, you can use a quote, you can talk about a poem, you can do any of these things as a way of saying religion really does matter. My religion tells me my morals, it's my moral compass. So that's the message that I want to give. Don't be ashamed to say I'm a good Christian and I'm a good Muslim or whatever, because that really has a great deal of clout with legislators.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Phyllis. Really appreciate those updates on what you're doing, and honestly, all the speakers and everything that I'm seeing in the chat as well is just a wealth of information, and we definitely need all the action we can get right now and all the voices we can get right now to our legislators and to Congress. So with that, I see we have exactly 10 minutes, which is great. And I know a lot of people have been asking questions in the chat, but I wanted to take this time now to open things up to everyone that's joining us. Thank you so much again for joining us and joining this conference this Sunday. And if anyone has any questions, if you look on the bottom of your screen, there's the reactions. If you want to raise your hand or give a thumbs up, please feel free to do that, and I can just turn it right over to you for your question or comments, anything.
Hi, Amani. It's Richard Duque from Marywood.
Hi, Richard.
I have a general question. And first of all, I should say that I'm teaching a environmental crime and justice class at Marywood this semester. First time it's ever been taught at Marywood. And we're developing an environmental studies program for some future possibilities for students at the BA and BS and also MA level. And Amani's actually going to present, thank you so much, on Tuesday to my class. And I want to know a little bit more about this RGGI Investment Act and what the sense is about the environmental justice component of it. I mean, is this greenwashing by a legislation that some have said are do nothing, or is there teeth there? And what is that? What should Pennsylvanian citizens think about 40% of these RGGI funds being dedicated to environmental justice? It sounds very impressive, but perhaps maybe you can unpack that for me.
Yeah, so because a little bit of background, this is something that has teeth. It is not what we would call the perfect bill, just given the nature of our legislature, right? Because the legislature did not take action to join RGGI, and it had to be done through executive order, a large chunk of the funds are automatically going to be designated to the Pennsylvania Clean Air Fund, which means DEP is going to administer those funds in existing clean air programs. Weatherization, energy efficiency, those are some ways that we can use it in justice communities. The other part of that money is allocated to the Energy Communities Trust Fund and the Environmental Justice Communities Trust Fund. Pennsylvania is a longtime extraction state, and part of the reason the word voters is in Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania and our national affiliates at LCV is we know who gets and who gives the money, and we have some real struggles with legislators feeling they need to answer quite heavily to both businesses, the fossil fuel industry and the people affiliated to it. So some folks, and I think we know you are in northeastern Pennsylvania, anthracite coal, we know that there are, I think, 3 remaining deep coal mines in Pennsylvania in southwestern Pennsylvania. And those workers are scared and they are clamoring and they are putting up a hell of a fight. So more money, I think, is going to end up going to the workers than necessarily addressing environmental justice communities. There are places where we can kind of push and pull more of that money, but because this was not done by the legislature to join RGGI, and given this particular legislature, I might not have wanted them to anyway, this is kind of the best case that we can get through the legislature to address both workers and environmental justice communities together with a pot of money. And then we are working as environmental lobbyists, as we are allowed to push DEP to push that clean air funding to very specific programs. I hope that answers your question. It's not a bad bill. I just wish it could be a little bit better.
No, thank you so much. That really helps a little bit more to understand this. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck, I see you have a question. You can unmute yourself and the floor is yours.
Yes, I guess it was 4 to 6 weeks ago, Governor Wolf issued a climate action plan, and I've really heard no expressions of support for that plan. And I've also not seen very many descriptions of the plan so that I can make my own judgment about whether it's could be something to really support. So I was wondering what some of the people on the panel thought about that plan. That's my question.
I'm going to take a first stab at this and then pass it to Ezra. I know that much, but the first stab at it is starting last week. Governor Wolf is a lame duck. He has 1 more year. If this were 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, it probably would have been more prominent. People are looking ahead to who the next governor of Pennsylvania might be. And I know myself and other C4 organizations, environmental organizations in Pennsylvania are working very diligently with campaigns right now to push environmental policy going forward. So that might be why you haven't been seeing as much as because of next year's gubernatorial election. So that's just hazarding a guess why you might not have seen the publicity. Ezra, did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, Katie, you hit it on the head. My only thing to add is that similar to the Reggie investment plan, it's good, it's fine, it's solid. To meet the moment we find ourselves right now, we need much more. We need stronger investments. We need bigger sticks, bigger carrots. We need the full-throated support of the entire executive branch of the governor's office, and we need the entire legislature to be on board. And working in Harrisburg right now is just hitting walls everywhere. And I'm hopeful that a new governor will have a bit more oomph behind all of this work. And while he's been a very good backstop, it would be great to have a bit more power behind the bully pulpit for climate in the governor's office. And we need to continue to build up our legislative champs in the General Assembly for climate to get any of this going the way it needs to go and to meet the moment where we are. So that's the only thing I'll add. It's good for now. It's not where we need to go yet, though. We need much more.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone else have any questions for speakers or comments? Someone's hand is raised. Oh, Bill, floor is yours. Hello.
Great. This is sort of a follow-up to Chuck's question. You know, I think Josh Shapiro is probably the presumptive Democratic nominee. I haven't seen any other names thrown into the ring there. And recently related to Reggie, he's expressed concerns about Reggie. I think what I've read is that he wants to make sure he has labor union support in the general election. And some of the labor unions seem to be opposed to Reggie because of their concern about loss of pipeline and gas and coal industry jobs. Is Shapiro going to be that stronger environmental advocate, or do we have to worry about keeping him in our camp when he's seems to be so concerned about labor support?
Very understandable question. Amani, quickly, is this going to be posted to your website or emailed out to members?
It will be both. Yeah, most likely
Okay.
both. Yeah.
You need to be careful what you say.
Yes. What I can tell you is right now, conservation voters of Pennsylvania, we have the utmost faith that Josh, if he becomes governor, will continue the strong environmental record that he has already shown as Attorney General and years ago, whether it had been as a county commissioner or previously a state representative. I can certainly tell you that what we should all be concerned about is not losing our focus on pushing the environment as a substantial piece of the conversation. We need to make sure that we are just as loud. The press, we see this with things happening at a national level, last year's presidential election. Everybody is looking for a circular firing squad, for lack of a better term. People are willing to mangle quotes. People are willing to misinterpret things. And I think our elected officials across the state going into next year at any level, not just the gubernatorial level, will need to be threading some very hard to thread needles to try to address the needs of all Pennsylvanians. But I will say that the C4, the political environmental community, has faith that Josh will continue on being the champion that he has already been in current and prior roles.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Brenda, did you have a question? You can unmute yourself. Or did I?
Yes, I did. I did unmute myself. Thank you. Related to this union issue, and in previous calls, I've heard, and in particular with John Kane, that had been his sticking point with Reggie. I'd really like to know what, if any, organizations are now trying to work with the unions to get them more on board, so we don't have this adversarial thing between the environment and union jobs. That would be my first part of my question or statement. The second is, I never hear anybody say anything about women. When I wrote John Kane, I said, you know, all these lovely union jobs that you're protecting don't protect the women's union jobs, like teachers who need clean air. You know, I forget sometimes, or people forget sometimes, that women and children are really adversely affected by this pollution that we're talking about. So anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
Is there anything we're doing with unions?
Yes. Yep. What I will start with is we have pipelines running near elementary schools, right? We have nurses who are already under the strain of COVID, who are also dealing with higher instances of asthma attacks in a time of COVID in frontline communities, and they are seeing these effects firsthand as well. The mothers taking care of children who have poisoned wells from fracking, who may or may not get their water buffalo delivery from a fracking company that particular week. That is definitely something to keep talking about. But in terms of unions, I will say that, again, yes, Mom's Clean Air Force is amazing. We are working with labor unions. I think all of our organizations are doing some things together and separately, and a lot of it is about building relationships and building trust. When we think about things in a faith community and you're having a difficult conversation with someone, there's a lot of trust that needs to be there before moving forward sometimes. So I think one thing that a few environmental partners will be doing, we are submitting a letter tomorrow, actually. I can't believe it's already tomorrow that this is going to happen, a letter in support of public sector unions. There's going to be an anti-public sector hearing out of House Labor and Industry Committee tomorrow. And a few of us have gotten together to write a letter in support of public sector unions, because we need DEP and DCNR employees and PUC employees are union members. And also, yes, the Blue Green Alliance has a regional director as well that we are all connected with. Thank you for bringing that up, Courtney.
I just want to
go ahead, Phyllis.
I just wanted to say that it's so important as we move into the next election cycle that all of us as citizens push all the people who are running, Democrat and Republican, to say, you know, what is your stand on environment? Come out strong on this. 10 years ago, environment never made it to the top 10. It didn't even make it onto the planks in many cases. And now, you know, majority of Americans want us to do something. Coming out of the climate talks, it's so obvious that we need to be the leaders. America needs to be the one who pays for some of the world to be able to survive. And we need to push our legislators on it. And we need to push candidates to say, how do they feel? And for them to be very straightforward. I mean, I'm quite disappointed right now in some of the people who are running, who are already out there saying they're running, and they're pushing other issues, and the environment is not where they are. We need to tell them, hey, we care about this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Phyllis. We actually only have about 60 seconds or so left. Let me just make sure there's nothing in the chat. We will be, as you know, the session was recorded. I've saved the meeting chat, so I can definitely make sure everyone that attended this receives all those notes and links and resources. I thank you guys so much. Thank you, Katie, Courtney, Phyllis, and Ezra for joining us and speaking with us for the first session, Advocacy and Policy and Organizing. Appreciate it so much, and thank you everyone for your questions and participation. This actually is now a 15-minute or so break until we get into our next portion of the conference. So please feel free to turn cameras off, and you'll probably get you will get a message saying to go back to the main room. So just look out for that. But thank you guys so much, and see you back on the main group.
Thank you.
Thank you all.